Tattoos have been trendy for years, but lately it seems removing tattoos is even more popular. Cosmetic surgeon Dr. Rokhsar is here to tell us about the new techniques for tattoo removal and the truth about whether all this inking and de-inking is really good for our health. Dr. Rokhsar, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we get to the removal of tattoos, tell me a little bit about how tattoos can affect our health and our skin.
Tattoos really, the process of putting a tattoo in the skin involves placing a pigment in the skin. So in of itself, placement of a pigment in the skin doesn't necessarily have any risks, but the placement of what you use actually to place it with, which is a needle, can potentially have some complications, including risk of infection. There has been cases of hepatitis and HIV transmission reported through placement of tattoos in unsanitary ways. There's also a risk of developing allergic reactions to some dyes that are used in tattoos, so the public should be aware of that placing a tattoo is not completely risk-free.
And I also found it interesting that later in life you can run into complications if you have to have an MRI.
Yeah, that probably has to do with the fact that if you develop an allergic reaction and you do have soft tissue swelling, potentially that soft tissue swelling can mask certain things in an MRI. That is not that common though.
Okay, but it's out there. So
it is out there.
Just another thing to tell your children when they're considering getting a tattoo. So tell me, there's this new technique to remove tattoos. How does it work?
Well, prior to the advent of lasers, when somebody wanted to remove a tattoo, you had a couple of options. One was surgical excision, or one was to manually abrade it through dermabrasion. With the advent of lasers, we're actually able to pinpoint in a very direct way to remove a tattoo. The newest laser, which is the Alex Trivantage, uses a series of 3 wavelengths, which has many advantages. The process involves breaking down the pigment particles in a tattoo through the energy of the laser so that the body's scavenging cells can come by and they can actually pick up those pigment particles and take it elsewhere. Okay,
so any side effects when you're using a laser?
With any laser treatment there is rare side effects which include risk of scarring and infection. The areas where you do laser do scab up for a few days at a time, and you do have to keep bandages on those areas each time.
And how long does this take? Can you go in once and walk out tattoo free?
Yeah, it's actually much easier to get a tattoo than to remove a tattoo. So the process can take a few sessions. On average, it may take 6 to 8 sessions, and the range may include anything from 3 to 12 sessions. And so it is a gradual process with time when you slowly remove a tattoo. Every time you do the laser treatment, the tattoo becomes lighter and lighter.
And how expensive are these treatments? Is it ever covered by insurance? It's
not covered by insurance. It is, the insurance companies do consider to be a cosmetic procedure, and the cost is a few $100s depending on the size of the tattoo and also the number of colors involved and so on and so forth.
So what makes this method safer than previous removal techniques?
Basically what you're doing is that you're using a specific wavelength of light to have a certain tissue interaction between the light and the skin, and so that wavelength of light is absorbed selectively, and so it breaks down the pigment particles. So it is really a way to remove a tattoo which is almost painless, and also it doesn't really leave marks that that you can have with surgical excision or dermabrasion. So you can have almost clearing of a tattoo with these new laser technologies.
Now, does it matter where the tattoo is on your body in terms of having it removed?
You can remove really tattoos on any body part. I mean, the important thing is that, for example, areas that have poorer healing may take longer. And that is, for example, ankles. Ankles is a very common area, especially for women, where they get tattoos and they have them removed, especially when women join the professional workforce. A lot of people want to remove them. So that area, you have to use gentler energy settings, and it may take longer to remove a tattoo on the ankles, for example.
Okay, well, in the 90s, we talked about this before you sat down, that it was a bit more trendy to get a tattoo. And I was in a sorority. A lot of my sorority sisters, they got them on their ankles. Right. So that's just kind of a harder place than to get it off, right?
It is a harder place. In general, it's funny. In my practice, I see that there's 2 groups of patients who want to remove tattoos. One group is the person that went and just got a tattoo on a whim, and the next day they regret it, and they're in the office, want to remove it. And like I said, the other segment of the population is really people who think that having a tattoo is not appropriate for a professional work environment. And there's many celebrities that have recently actually removed tattoos. I think for that specific reason.
And then there are a lot of celebrities that still have a ton. I mean, I can't imagine the makeup artist trying to cover up all of Angelina Jolie's tattoos when she's doing a movie. Now, tell me, in terms of these laser removals, should this be viewed as a fix-all? Oh, I can have it removed, so I'm going to go out and get a tattoo now?
Yeah, I think it's probably not a good idea to think of it that way. You know, removing a tattoo is much more arduous than placing a tattoo. It does take a number of sessions, and it is kind of a work in time. So I think that you should be really sure about if you're going to get a tattoo. The other thing also to consider is that even though with the advent of this new laser, the Alex Tri-Vantage, we can get multiple colors removed. There are certain colors that are still very tricky to remove.
Really?
And
Which
so the
ones?
public should know about that. And for example, white tattoos are next to impossible to remove. Also, the color yellow is somewhat difficult to remove as well.
All right, so I would have thought like the brighter colors, red and blue, but not so?
No, actually blue, green, and black are the easiest colors to remove, and red is actually much easier now. We have a certain wavelength that we can actually hit red with it also.
Interesting. Dr. Rokhsar, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And don't forget, you can follow ABC News Now on Facebook and Twitter. Just search ABC News Now.